Hey everyone, it's Leanne Thomas from Angelic Hope. And I want to thank everybody who's here live with me. And we're on Zoom. And those of you that are on Zoom here with me get the benefit of being able to ask me questions. And we'll have an activity that won't end up on YouTube. But all of you that are following along on YouTube, say hello, drop a comment, or perhaps even a question in the chat area there. And try to consider to join us live. Today, we will be discussing and then working on and practicing and having activities with clairsentience. And part of that will be a short, small dive into the area of the aura and activities today to help you all work with the aura. If you haven't viewed the consciousness classes, consciousness, intuition, and consciousness that are already on my YouTube channel, I want to strongly suggest that you go and view those. They're set up for these Claire classes. Now, to dive into what clairsentience is, it means clear feeling. Clair is a French word or a French portion of the word clairsentience, meaning clear, and sentience is how we use our body or how we feel into things from our intuitive, or some people would call it a psychic sense. And everyone, even all beings, are clairsentient. So I believe, this is perhaps my opinion because I don't know how we would necessarily prove this, but even every blade of grass is clairsentient. I believe that all trees and insects and our pets and all of the animal kingdom, perhaps, just throwing it out there, maybe even soil and rocks. Who am I to say that they aren't? So I just like to keep my mind open that there is the possibility that that's the case. But when we think about clear feeling, we're embodying the psychic sense within us, that intuitive knowing, where our physical body may be responding to the environment in some way. And that environment could mean someone else and someone else's physicality. And the environment can mean the space around us, the air pressure, perhaps even Mother Earth. And so we're picking up on or tuning into the frequencies and the vibration of the energy of the space around us through our body. And it can have an impact on the mind. And so it gets tricky in some schools of thought between the idea of claircognizance and clairsentience. But we'll be focusing on clairsentience today. In my notes here, I have written that a person with clairsentient abilities is believed to receive intuitive information through physical sensations, emotions, or gut feelings. And so we can look at those areas as all kind of interwoven together, can't we? Like it's the impact through an emotional feeling that arises, it's coming in from somewhere in us. Maybe it's our gut, or some people might say the area of the solar plexus that's getting ignited or triggered. I believe that the nervous system, our nervous system, plays a factor in our ability to utilize our clairsentience. So, in the other courses that I taught that are on YouTube now with consciousness and intuition, the notion of the pineal gland and the brain and the neurons and all of that has an impact on our intuitive or the conceptualization of where intuition can come into play. And when we think about clairsentience, we can't leave out the nervous system, but it's not often taught the impact that the nervous system can have and be our tool. Part of our whole body can be a tool here, but also the idea of the nervous system and being someone that can regulate their nervous system can be of huge benefit to using our clairsentience to our benefit, to helping us stabilize ourselves with peace as we navigate through the world and feeling different things as we would in the world, where it's the Schumann resonance that we're picking up on. And the Schumann resonance is known as like the pulse of the earth, the vibe, the rhythm of the planet Earth herself. Some people call it Mother Earth or Gaia. And that can have an impact when you're clairsentient or you're tuned into the frequency of clairsentience. And so think of it like dialing in correctly on a radio station. But I expect there'll be some younger people that are viewing this, and the idea of tuning in. And so we used to have the radios where we'd have to turn the dial and get on the station just right, otherwise we'd get static in the background. And so that's is, to me, somewhat of a more accurate way of looking at how we can best utilize clairsentience, which means, again, your gut feelings or perhaps your emotions. And the use of our nervous system is how we fine tune that. I want to talk a little bit about the nervous system. Well, little science here about the central nervous system, and we have the peripheral nervous system. And the peripheral nervous system is the nerves that are in the central nervous system. We have the autonomic nervous system, and that's the key part which controls involuntary body functions, heartbeat, digestion, breathing. You don't walk around just thinking about your heart beating unless you're putting attention and focus on there, right? Your heart beats whether you're willing it to beat or not, right? And then until it doesn't. And so that also can have its own wavelength, frequency, and vibration that can sink into the environment that I was talking about, that we are tuning into. Getting on the frequency of our environment can have an impact on our heart rate. Anybody's ever had an anxious moment? Anybody that's had an anxiety attack? Anybody walking into a meeting, an interview? We know that we're keying into the environment and our nervous system is somehow triggered and it's impacting our heart rate. And we can't really just necessarily say slow down heart, but we can do techniques to help us bring that nervous system into balance so we navigate that environment with our clairsentience to the best of our ability. It's called having clean energy. It's our own personal clean energy, bringing clean energy into the environment, whereas perhaps certain things can trigger us to have our nervous system somewhat hijacked, right? Like we all know that these things have happened, whether you're going to the dentist or the doctor perhaps, or something that's just making you nervous. And the environment plays a role. We know this, right? But how about those times you start to feel something and you have no idea why? This is why you're here today. And this is going to be that drop in the bucket that helps you tune in to putting a depth of understanding into what's just happening to me now. What about this environment that I'm in that is having an effect on my nervous system that I can kick my clairsentience into gear so that I navigate things to the best of my ability? It might be because your senses are kicking into gear because there's something you're perceiving without knowing, right? Ever like not know that somebody's behind you, but you sense somebody's behind you and so you turn around and then they're there? That is the moments before you know that you already know. That is a clairsentient moment. And it's normal and it's natural and it happens to probably everyone, right? Like just like say yes and throw that in the chat, or if you're listening on YouTube later, put a yes in there if you know that this is something that happens for everyone. We sense sometimes things coming before we know they're coming, and it's because our nervous system is in tune with that clairsentience. That's the name I'm giving it. That's the name that's often given in spiritual groups and in spiritual, language, right? And so let's talk a little bit about this sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight, because that's where that anxiousness can come in that causes us a sense of a wanting to respond or react, right? But we know fight or flight is more of a reaction, right? We still might need to have a response of fight or flight in situations, but when it's out of what feels our ability to control it, we're in that sympathetic nervous system fight or flight moment. And when we understand clairsentience more and we practice working with it, or understanding that the nervous system is playing a part in the environment that is unseen in some way, the energy, the frequency, and the vibrations that are out there. Clairsentience is a label that we can give our connection to that. And we can even do it on purpose for the sake of support of other people, ourselves, when we continue to tune into it. And so that sympathetic nervous system will cause us to have an increase in heart rate, right? The dilation of pupils. It inhibits, so it stops or slows down digestion, expands airways, releases stored energy, and even like glucose is something that we know science has been able to measure gets released. And so when that fight or flight comes up, the benefit that you can add to it is that sense of what do I need to tune into in this moment for my benefit? Because probably you won't have a need to run from a saber-toothed tiger, right? And I hope that you don't have other kinds of moments in your life where you need to have a true fight or flight moment. But we can feel this way, and nothing that we know that we can see is following us, trying to get us, trying to hurt us, something like that. But our system, nervous system, has been triggered. Anybody ever experienced that? And sometimes it's an anxious moment. Just type yes in the chat there if you know you've experienced a moment like that and you're not being chased by a bad guy or a saber-toothed tiger, or your mom with a broom. Put down a yes in there if you know that things like that happen. It is a connection that you can begin to build some more peace with and calm that sympathetic nervous system in order for your clairsentience to have its place and its intuitive hit of, hey, what's really going on here for me? Is this me? Or is this somebody else or something else, like the environment? And that's what I ask now when I have these moments that don't feel like they make sense. I struggled a lot, especially in my teenage years and then through my early 20s, and with having anxiety. There wasn't the label with it back then. I guess that's really aging myself. We didn't really call it. Sometimes people would say that they were highly sensitive or emotional, things like that. But it's really that ability that I had that I wasn't putting a name to it. It's clairsentience. I had the ability to tune in, but I didn't have at those times, and maybe this is new to you as well, or somebody listening, to be able to navigate it so that I have more control over my sympathetic nervous system so that my moment doesn't get hijacked by terror. Extreme sweating, my heart's beating out of my chest, the inability to think with clarity in the moment. I can get it back now. I still may have a trigger reaction, but stop. When you have that, if you're taking notes, write this down. Ask, is this mine or is it someone or something else's? And then breathing techniques. And we're going to practice a breathing technique in a little bit as we go along. Those two things can be very helpful in shifting. There's lots of breathing techniques out there that different ones can work better for different people. And in the middle of the grocery store or in traffic, I don't know that I want to get out my nostril breathing. If anybody's done the yogic nostril breathing, you breathing in one nostril and out the other. But that's one of the, it's really difficult to stay in an anxious moment if you practice that form of breathing. But it's really can also feel anxiety ridden to do it in the middle of a concert or something like that. But find a place to do it and it'll work. So those moments of all of a sudden being scared when there really doesn't seem to be a reason for it, that can very much be a clairsentient moment where it's your chance to test yourself and to stop, slow down, take a breath, take a moment, tune in, ask, is this mine or someone else's? And then see what starts to come up for you. See if there is a sense that you can sense it's someone else, especially like even very recently with the eclipses and the moons that we've been having. I've been waking up in the middle of the night with these feelings, but I am able to quickly get it back. And quickly is a relative term. All right, so we'll move on to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that rest and digest. This is the time when we practice these skills, are like looking into the aura, that help us have a depth of understanding about clairsentience. And so with the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, it's the calming of the body. And it's the down regulation of a quick heartbeat. It's the slowing heart rate. It's our pupils can constrict so they don't dilate out so big. Stimulates digestion. Like we have more of a flow in the body, which makes sense, right? There's just an energetic vibration of flow of the body. So it stimulates positive digestion or the ability to digest. So people with a lot of stomach issues or even vary a lot of sensitivities to certain kinds of foods, and there isn't like it grows on someone, like diabetes can grow on some people, they weren't born with it, right? It's often an indication that their nervous system is hijacked very often. And so breathing techniques for them, regular meditation, things like that can really help these people not suffer as much with their digestion. And they're probably highly clairsentient individuals, and they can learn, and they make really great people who can tune into other people's emotions or even their body ailments. And even if they practice over time, they can become excellent as, like, I'm going to call it medical mediumship. I don't like that term, or medical intuitives. It's more of, I wish we would put the word wellness with it. Wellness, something with that, and we can maybe come up with a term later that would work with this. But when our airways kind of narrow and it promotes energy storage when we're in that rest and digest mode, it's a great time to work on how to process when those other times aren't working well, and also into the study of utilizing clairsentience. And we'll be practicing some of these things today. So here's the key difference. The sympathetic nervous system activates the body in stressful situations, which would be necessary because you don't want to be all peace, man, love and light, like if a saber-tooth tiger is trying to get you, right? While the parasympathetic system conserves energy and helps you with recovery. So this is important information, and it's because your body is your gift, and it's the tool from which we can utilize our clairs. And the first one that we're doing is clairsentience. We're going to talk briefly about the layers of the human aura, or the energy field. This, though, is a humongous course. I'm going to boil it down into a few minutes, and I do want to share an image here. So let me pull this up. It did not do make it so people can see this correctly. Um, you guys can see the human aura there, and hope it, can you, Troy? Let me know. Can you also see all the other junk on my laptop? Let me see if that I'm making it better. I can't hear Troy, but that's all right.
Only the aura.
Okay, you can see it. You guys can see the aura well.
Mhm.
In the image, it's just an image I grabbed off of the internet. It's and I appreciate this simplistic image. The human, so that we can look at what the layers are within the aura. And the important thing is that you have the basic understanding for the activities that we're going to do. Little Miss Penny wants to say hi. She's being a doll baby and she's just giving me licks over here. Um, Say hi, Penny, to all the people in the world. um, so the aura, we start with what's closest to us, and we can see in the image that we've got the human body, and then we go right into the etheric body, which is the area very close to us. It's often quite easy to see this. It can be somewhat of an image of radiating off of the body. Um, but what clairsentient individuals often do is feel the emotional body, which you can see there is next. And then we go into the mental body, which is the realm of our thoughts that live in the energy field around us. We've got the other ones there, but essentially the etheric, the emotional, and the mental are what we're going to talk about for the aspect of clairsentience, of picking up on the energy around other people. But you can do this with pets, you can do this with trees. You can spend some time doing using this. It's easiest to do it off of other people, but certainly give it a go. I want to encourage all of you to take some extra practice at any time with this. You won't pick up as much emotion, right? Or mental activity off of a tree. It's just, that's the reason why. But it isn't that you wouldn't maybe perhaps be able to see. So let's talk about the idea of seeing. Um, that's a misnomer, or it's not the right word. And people can get hung up on that I don't see aura. Well, see is a term I'm using loosely because some people will sense it. They'll just sense someone's vibe, right? Ever heard that? It doesn't mean that you can't spend time and effort, even if you feel you aren't able to see someone's aura with your eyes, that it isn't that you couldn't work up to seeing it because it is available to be seen. There are there's energy radiating out from us and is all around us, and learning to perceive it is possible. We use more of our intuitive sense, and when we get into clairvoyance, we would be more considering the actual seeing of the aura with our eyes, maybe a particular color or a particular shape in someone's aura. Some of you may have a natural tendency or ability today when we do things with this, but really the point would be to feel what you sense off of the aura. It's powerful to let needing to see something with your physical eyes, or maybe even non-physical eyes, go in an effort to sense what you feel. And we often do this easily and quickly, and everybody is doing it all the time. But when we go to practice things or on purpose, some people will say they're not getting something. Here's the magic with doing something like this is that everyone will be able to get something. And what you get might not be the way or how someone else gets it, but it's all of value. And we get really hung up on the need to compare or the idea that how someone's getting it is they're better at it or more talented. And because everybody, even animals, have this ability, right? I already threw in my belief. So we're just going to run with my belief on that everybody has it in an effort so that we can work in this way. Let's talk a little bit about that etheric body because it's the one that's closest to the physical body, extending, some would say, about a half an inch to 2 inches out from the physical, say, skin of the body. And these are just not necessarily truths, how far out it goes, but it's something to help you create a perception in your mind so that you can understand how energy moves outward or exists in layers around us based on these concepts. And so it's closest. It's the blueprint of the physical body. That's where at times I can sense with someone where they've got an issue or an ailment, right? I feel this is off. I'm being drawn right to the, abdomen or my kidneys. And I use my other senses to support what I'm getting with that. But it's like it's got the blueprint. It includes sensations, pain, and health issues. So if you were to think about the area closest to the body, wouldn't it make sense that that's the area that would be most perceived with these kinds of issues? And it's perhaps why certain energy healers like to put hands on the body, because not only can they send it directly into the blueprint and the physical body, right? They are also working with theirs, from the energy with theirs. It isn't necessary to touch the body, but there's practitioners out there that really like to do that. The next is the emotional body. It's often referred to as a second layer. It extends out about 1 to 3 inches beyond the physical body, related to feelings, moods, and emotional well-being, and tied often to the sacral chakra is the thought of that. Not necessarily. So keep that in mind. And so when we come to the emotional body, people that are highly emotionally driven, right, or sensitive, or often have more anxious moments, their emotional body will be very interwoven with the mental body. And so instead of trying to tweak out today, am I tapping into the emotional body here or the mental body? Just go with what comes to you, and the information will tell you. I'm picking up on there's been some emotional stress, or, maybe you'll pick up somebody's going through a hard time. Or somebody just, maybe got a promotion or a raise, or you're picking up like, man, there feels like there's really good vibes going on with you. You could be picking up on that emotional body, but it connects so closely to the mental that comes next from the thinking. But there are people that are more intellectual than they are emotional, right? And so you might pull in that way, and we sense it. Don't you? Don't, just when I say that, do you often have you experienced meeting someone that you could tell even before you were even talking to them, or they only spoke a little bit, that they were very intellectual? And how about someone that is very emotional? Or how about someone in your family? If you could say, this person in my family is an intellectual, this person is an emotional, right? Type a yes in there if that makes sense to you. All right, I'm going to stop the share. Okay, so we don't necessarily need that. So we already have a working framework of what these things mean. So when we go to practice or use it, you lean in on that because you've already had these experiences. Even as a child, I could sense as my mom walked through the door, like if I was going to need to go in my room and be real quiet and make sure I didn't have a mess anywhere, or if it was going to be, I could stay out and watch TV, or I could just tell by her footsteps walking in the door. Like I needed to have a heightened sense of being aware of her moods. I to be safe, and I needed to be aware of that. And some people just naturally do it. I want to ask you all a question to think about. When you um, are going to a restaurant to sit at a table with friends or loved ones or yourself, think about the position that you sit in at that table in respect to the other people there and all the other people that are in that room. Do you have to see the door or be faced towards the door, or do you prefer your back to the door? Just type in there, or maybe you don't know. Maybe you're like, oh, never thought about it. Type it in the chat there, and something to think about if people are watching on YouTube. I want to see. Hmm. Yeah, I get you. Uh-huh. Look at that. Yep. So many people are saying facing the door. Like if we all go to dinner together, you and me are fighting it out. So I have to sit. We're all going to sit facing one way. um, yeah, like, and it's totally fine if you have no preference. And sometimes people, when they're with a certain person that they feel very safe with, they will let that person take that spot perhaps. Um, I was always doing it and I never knew until a friend pointed it out to me. And so then I needed to work on it so that I could change it up. Yeah. And some of you know that you've got partners or other people in your life that really prefer it. Now you can mention to them, they are highly sensitive clairsentience, highly sensitive. They will just say, no, it's because I'm the man. Or they'll just say, like, this is how they taught me as a man. So, but it's really a very highly sensitive individual or someone that might have grown up in a household such as I did, where you didn't really know what was going to be walking through that door. Yeah, right, right. Or the feeling of being trapped in the middle. Some people might sense, and that's also like a being a sensitive. But when you're aware of it, you can work with the notion of I'm going to be okay. I'm going to work with this. I'm going to push myself to get that sense of knowing I'm okay. But if it's no big deal and it's just your preference, then sit where you want to sit, right? But be aware of it. That's the only thing I wanted to point out when we were discussing these things. Okay, so we went over the nervous system and how that it plays a pivotal, not a pivotal, it plays a crucial part with clairsentience. It is your physical body's signaling system for you to wake up and pay attention to the environment. And it is giving you clues that might be unseen that are there. Highly clairsentient mediums, it works in the same way because the spirit world is right here. So it's not different. Or perhaps some people are sensing their angelic team or things, or maybe you're not sure, but you know you sense something. And so when you get in those moments of where your parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest, you've got everything flowing, that's a point of just even asking them in. And then you just sense what you feel. The atmosphere might change around you. You might get goosebumps. You might have the ear pressure things. That's a clairsentient key. That when you are calm and that you able to have the narrowed, you're not, you're able to control your breath. You're able to work with yourself in the moment from a calm state. Your heart rate is even. And you might notice though your heart rate starts to go a little faster and then slow back down as energy connects in with you and you invite in your spirit team. It is as simple as that. We overthink it. We make things complicated. We're expecting then for the voice to come through, clairaudient voice, Edgar, this is your stomach talking. Get out of there. It's really not, it's so subtle. And that's where you're tuning that radio in, guys. Let it be subtle. Comes in on the energy of a hair. It's fine. It's your voice in your head sometimes if you're hearing things clairaudiently. It is your imagination side of your brain kicking in with the support of spirit merging. And people will discount it, some of us because we're used to it, and some because it's not real, right? It's not physical. So we want to get over that. And these four classes, as it relates to the Claire, that is my intention, is to help you move past that block that can happen with that. We're also not going to allow any blocks of what we believe how our clairsentience should happen, or how, when we're working with perceiving auras, should be. We're going to let it be what it is. There's a teacher that I've had, I say this all the time, and I like to think that it's my saying now, but it's not. But I love saying, be a fool for God. Just be a fool for this moment. Be a fool for the sake of your growing intuition, and see where it takes you and how synchronicities then can enliven your life. Okay, let me check my notes where we're at. I don't want to miss anything. You know how I like to do that. All right, we're going to begin setting an intention. And the intention will be to free our minds to accept. To accept. And so I want to, if it's comfortable for you, wherever you're at, to gently close your eyes. And then just bring some gentle, focused attention to your breath. Because the breath is the way that we check in with our nervous system. That's what we're going to do. We're going to check in. We're going to see if it feels like it can move into more rest and digest. And with your eyes closed, I want you to just set the intention that I am willing to be a fool here in any given moment. There isn't any necessity to be right about anything. We're just going to be accepting of what is. And feel how yummy that feels, to just be accepting. And I want you to allow your eyes to just open slightly. In meditation, we call this capping the eyes, and it will be taking the gaze and moving it downwards towards the floor. Perhaps at your lap, maybe at your feet, or the floor. Just taking the gaze downward. And I want you to breathe in and breathe out while looking downward. And then close the eyes again and see with the eyes closed if you can look straight up to the top of your head, to the top of your eyelids. See if you can keep your chin steady while still with the eyes closed, taking the gaze all the way up to the top of your head, perhaps looking in towards your pineal gland. Just think, I surrender. Okay, if you'd like, it feels good to you, go ahead and open your eyes. We're going to begin this first activity by using our hand. And so I have a white background that I'm wearing, and but it doesn't matter if you have a dark background or a white background. But if you feel like you're not really picking up on anything, then with your hand in this moment, when you're going to use your hand, like I would use mine, and you could use a white paper if you have one in your house or nearby, or a napkin or anything. And if you don't have one right now, it's okay, but perhaps give it another go later then in those moments. What I will do even now, even though I've been doing this and teaching this activity for more than 10 years, I will still throw my hand up when I'm stopped at a stoplight, and I will look between my fingers. And so I'd probably use my right hand um, because I don't have any jewelry on it, but jewelry won't make a difference. But if you are wanting, if you're feeling like you're just getting somehow, you're just like, this is just a no go for me in this moment, then use your breath like we just did with some breathing. We just let our breath be normal, but we moved our eyes, right? But if you struggle with this, I want you to do like you would set a reset button on something. Like, or you know how when you're sometimes you plug something into the wall and it won't plug in, like your hair dryer, and then you have to press that little button on it to make it work again. So it's like that, like it's reset button. Then you just want to say, okay, reset. I sometimes put my hands over my heart just to check in to help my nervous system, like my heart rate regulate. And then you try again and you try again and you just do different days. And then sometimes you'll go, oh, I know I saw that. Because you can't disprove it to yourself, right? You do it until you do it. And so you just take a moment and all you have to do is soften your gaze. Like if I'm looking real hard at something, then I may miss the point. But I've done it for so long now, it doesn't matter. Like it won't matter. But you just hold your hand in front of you either way and just do it right now. Hold your hand up and see if you can notice any energy between your fingers. You can you can add anything to that you want. You might just notice that shimmering. You might notice that there's a certain color. Oh yeah, I do. I have a certain color. And so you might just notice. And so you just take some time to see what you notice. Huh, Miss Penny? Just take some time. She's got her little toy here squeaking in, of course. Good news is it doesn't need to be quiet to observe. But you might also get some other kind of sense going on if you're looking at your own hand because information might be coming to you for you. Be open to that. So put in there when you're ready any comments, those of you here on the Zoom, that what something that you're sensing. Maybe you got a color, but did you need to? No. Maybe you saw some energy movement between your fingers. You could put that. It's okay if you didn't. I love that. It is so cool, right? Yes, yes. You could try it different, see if there's different feelings or sensations or knowings that come up. Clairsentience, we're not really trying to look here, but we are. We're using the aura as a jumping off point, and I'm leaving it open if you might see a color, you might see a shimmer. This is your energy that we're currently connecting to, and it'll make a little more sense when we do the next activity why I picked the aura, because this is clairvoyance, Leanne. Well, it's not really, and I think, but if you see something, awesome, not a problem. Some people are sensed a white color, a glow, nice. Somewhat of a fuzzy outline, very cool. A white glow, yep. And that's whatever it means for you. You're going to trust your sense about it. There is, when I teach aura work or depth of aura work, I do teach like color and how color interplays and what they mean. But just even think of yellows, like there's a million color yellows. The idea of evoking like a pale yellow is different than a lemon yellow to sunshine yellow, right? So we think of it's so vast that we don't really need to worry about that. right here and right now. And black is not a bad color to see around someone with their aura. However, things that look muddy or somehow brownish, cloudyish, muddyish tends to be something of possible concern. Okay, I have a lot of people giving their what they're sensing here. I love that. You guys are being so interactive. It warms my teacher's heart. Like you guys are giving me a million good vibes when you do that. You bless me by giving your comments. And if you're on YouTube later, or if you guys watch this again later and you comment on YouTube, that's just, it really does. It warms my little teacher heart. Okay, we're gonna move on from this, and you can go back to this over and over again to get better at it or good at it. And you'll start to notice if you do this around other people, which you can do anywhere at any time, whether you're standing in line at the grocery store or you're even watching a television show. You can look at the people's aura on the television show that you're watching. And you can get really good at like feelings or sensing something about someone. And so you're going to practice with me. So, and I hope you guys can see me big enough. Is everybody? Just type yes if somebody can see. Am I big enough to see? And I'm on a really good background and I'm wearing a white shirt because that tends to be helpful when we're doing these activities. It's not necessary, but I just want to give everybody the best chance they can get. Okay. And so you're going to tune in and you're going to not necessarily look at me, but you'll look around me. And you're not going to worry about, like it feels like it's this layer. You're going to trust the information you're getting as being of the value. Because remember, the emotional body for a lot of people and the mental body can really look like it's interwoven. It can swirl even somewhat and move. It doesn't, your aura or your energy field doesn't stay in a egg shape, or a figure shape around your body. It kind of undulates and it moves. And it interplays even by moving in and out of the density of what we would call our physical body. So don't fall into that. But if you saw something in a particular area, note that, right? And there's no getting this wrong or there's no getting this right. And I do want your comments. You could put in, I'm sensing that there may be a certain emotional thing, and just go for broke, right? Whatever you want to put in there, and I can take it. Like, throw it at me. We're not suggesting that you guys try to be medical in any way. Just if you sense anything, maybe you sense about what I'm feeling. Maybe you sense if something's off with me physically. You might say, I don't know why, is there something going on with your throat? You can pose it as a question if you want on there. And know for people that are watching this later on YouTube, you might pick up on something that was happening with me today or is happening to me in the moment that you're viewing this later. And so that's where it can be a value for you to just trust, be that fool for the process, and put what you get. And so I love that. Somebody has already put here that they see a few flashes of yellow above, like my left shoulder over here on this side, if that's where you saw it. That's where I'm assuming. Yep. And I know exactly what that means. I love that. So I don't know if you know what that means, but I know exactly what that means. It's interesting. It's on the left. Okay, I can see a green aura around you, mainly your head and above the shoulders. Okay, see, people are even gearing into the idea of what they can see around color. And it's okay if you don't. You might just put, I'm sensing nervousness, I'm sensing, and you don't know if you're picking up something that might happen in an hour from now, right? So trust everything you're getting. Be bold. Yellow can relate to wisdom or the sharing of wisdom. It can also relate to leaning in on happiness or like the idea of vivid or brightness. But it can also relate to the sharing of knowledge or understanding or wisdom. Green often relates to either whether it's self healing, so it would depend on what kind of green. And so that's where I don't want to necessarily diagnose, what you're sensing on me because that's not fair to you, and how you're perceiving that color. And there's no such thing as a bad color. Yeah, pale green. Yeah, pale green often represents wanting, like, say, more natural or gentleness. There's an added gentleness with something, which doesn't sound like me. I'm just teasing. No, it does. An added pale green or light green can also mean something not quite ready to come into fruition. It's not quite ripe. So that all of a sudden felt right to me. If that felt the same to you. Oh, that was cool how it came out like that. Well done. Oh, how fun. White, yep, around you, and it moves. Right. White can also be the idea of our loved ones being around. When white comes in at times, especially if there's movement with it. So that's possible. I'm just giving you things that are possible, right? We're not worried about right or wrong because there's no such thing as that. Okay, I can sense another energy over your left. Maybe your guides or your angels. I can see your energy flowing as you move your arms. My arms do move a lot. Yeah, I kind of am. Yeah, it's my activity. A violet energy. I saw a violet around my hands when I was doing that, so that's interesting. Really cool. Okay, and part of my hair. Yep, maybe I'm bringing in that violet can represent, and it just depends on, I'm just giving ideas. I'm not saying this is exactly what it is because I don't want to take anybody what they saw away from them. But sometimes violet, sometimes I'm going to just say that can represent like the idea of vibing up or conscious effort to vibing up. So that's dependent on how it was. And look at me moving my arms all around like I'm climbing up. I think that's just funny. Yes. All right. The yellow, or like a halo, and it can represent wisdom and knowledge. The sharing of that is often why it's that color. So that's what I'm trying to do. Okay. The strongest is the yellow on the crown of the head. There you go. That makes perfect sense. And so that's kind of the idea or the fun here with this. If anybody else wants to put something, now what I want to do is have you ask questions. If you would like to unmute, you can, because I do still want this to be on camera. But you can also just type it in the in our chat room here, and I can read it, whatever you're comfortable with. Ask a question while we're still on camera because I think it will be helpful to people that won't have the benefit of some of this because we're still going to do another activity, but only us here live. Come on. Okay, a question is coming in. Okay, how do you differentiate between shadows and actually seeing aura? I don't think it's a value right now to do that. If something is a shadow, then you can close your eyes and see what you're getting. Am I feeling anxious with this person? Because a shadow would be physically there just for like, because I have a shadow on my wall because of the lighting in the room, right? So then what I do is I make it not matter. Okay, doesn't matter if a shadow's there or not. What am I getting? What am I sensing? Am I feeling an emotion? Am I feeling like, I wonder if Leanne's knees hurt? Or, and they don't right now, but doesn't mean that they don't sometimes. But you know what I mean? Like I close my eyes and I let that inner sense, and I'm just tuning in. See, we don't necessarily just have to tune into other people, but we can make the effort that my intention is to for you to say tune into me, right? And if that's helpful. But just the idea of looking at the one person, or say if it was a photograph, or say a memory of someone that you have, like you wanted to connect with your grandmother that was in the spirit world, you just close your eyes and you can see an image of her in your head, or something that reminds you of her, and that's the intention that you set. That's how intentions are anchored in. If you can attach a feeling or emotion that you had to that person of intense love, or a feeling that you have of wanting to give them something. Some people want to tell their loved ones they're sorry or something, right? Like that's intention setting that has an emotion connected to it that links us in, right? In mediumship, we call it linking, right? But and we can do that with the living, but the living, it's really more like I need to tune into their frequency because they're alive. And I got to tell you guys, I trust what I'm getting, and I know that sometimes people will be like, no, I really don't think so. And I don't ever get in their head and try to mess them up. But I just say, just put it aside, right? If something shows up, or you know how like emotions or lessons that we've learned, we can just even randomly think of somebody we dated in high school. And for me, that was a long time ago, right? So, I mean, ever have a random thought like that? We're cycling through layers of stuff sometimes without even knowing it. And sometimes someone might be doing something like that, or they're on the threshold of that energy showing up for them. But don't try to convince somebody that they're sad if they're not, right? You just say, move on from it. Just put it in your pocket. Yeah, that's like what I like to tell. Put it in your pocket, and if something comes up, you know how to work with it now. Move through it like, whatever's coming to me. Okay, yeah, I love that. I experienced that as well, feeling off balance or dizzy, almost like the ground is moving or shifting. And that can be more than one thing. It's between the energy of the environment, can be a lot of things all at once, right? Even locations can have trauma connected to them, where there's been wars, right? Or places on roads that have had many accidents in certain spots. Places can carry energy, especially if trauma was there. So think, instead of thinking something's wrong with you, or how do I stop this, think, what am I tuning into? My nervous system, my physical body is having a real reaction. That's not to be ignored. But people, oh, you're just sensitive. I don't feel anything right here. It's like, well, sorry for you, because I do. I don't really mean it to be sound as snotty as it did right there. But that's a great question, the idea of shadows and seeing aura. Close your eyes, don't worry about the shadow, focus in, tune in with your intention, and go for what you might be getting. Or for today, it's just good enough to know that you're getting things, and you've tuned in, so you're doing things on purpose. Okay, I would be curious about clairsentience and the correlation it has with feeling dizzy, right, or off. Yeah, it's the environment. It's the environment is playing, it's the, I don't know if I can call it the atmospheric pressure or not, to tell you the truth. That could have something to do with it. It could have your frequency and vibration have a signature. You can be in a place that's out of sync with your frequency and vibration, but maybe not the person next to you, right? And so I have been places before where I just know this is not the place to be. Like, this is not the place for me. Um, and there are places that I just don't go into that don't resonate with me from the top, just for whatever reason. Um, it doesn't matter what that is. I'm not I'm not putting like a judgment on something here. I'm putting on that there's a vibe with certain things. and I don't vibe with certain things. So then I don't need to put myself in a situation to go there unless I need to vibe there for health and I'm just talking myself out of a good thing. And so, in other words, an example of that would be if I need to get on an airplane to go to Hawaii. I vibe really well with Hawaii. Being on airplanes, I don't. But it will be good for me to get on the airplane so that I can get to Hawaii and I can manage myself when I know that's an issue for me with my nervous system. I've got tools in my pocket. I have breathing techniques that I can do. I can, you know, take not have as much coffee. I can't think of the way how to say this correct right now in this moment, but I usually can say it ashtawanga. I'm going to say healthy mushrooms, not mushrooms that get you high. I don't think that's a good idea before getting on an airplane, but reishi mushrooms, lion's mane, things like that that I can take to support that. I can have meditations ready to go. I can be in my space that I need to be. I can do technologies, the tools that I have to support me getting from A to B to be in my place. That's what I mean by a place that's not good for me. I'm not talking about I don't want to walk down the street and walk into a certain kind of club, right? I don't need to, that's not going to be a vibe for me. And it's not going to necessarily be a blessing for me to vibe in that location, if you know what I mean. And so that's where if I'm talking myself out of a good thing, I want to check in with what that is. But I do. If you get me on an airplane, I am dizzy. And my whole sense of it's not my best. I have to work at regulating that. Just, you know, for whatever reason. We don't have to dive into all the reasons for things because that's just my victimhood, if you will, would be coming out in that way. Um, let's see, I don't want to miss questions here and I want people to hear them. Um, I'm seeing the background moving like clouds from right to left. I think you mean with me, for the person who wrote that, that they are seeing that. And clouds can represent um, it can represent thought form. Just think of how thought bubbles. It can represent thought form or energy forms around people when someone sees that. It doesn't represent bad ones, right? It just represents that that may be a sense of a budding ability to connect to spirit in a certain way, or thought forms that would be around me, or certain kinds of energies that can relate to. So it's a way of sometimes that's how people will perceive things, right? How would or does clairsentience work when you've minimized your anxiety? Well, you don't need anxiety at all to be clairsentience. It just means that if you've minimized the anxiety, if you have it and it's minimized, then you can seek to understand what has thrown your system off. What are you tuning into that created some anxiety to be minimized, right? What is going on in your environment? And remember that our thoughts can be part of what is in the environment. Thoughts literally, in my opinion, in my belief, in my experience as well, thoughts kind of wave out from people, and they are bigger than our head. I mean, we the actual thought and how it is carries energy. I don't have to know what the actual thought is to know that there is thinking going on around someone, or they may have anxiety, or the idea that I can sense that they're an analyzer, an overthinker, right? You know, and so people can sense that. And when you use your clairsentience for understanding, always start with yourself and your world and the people in your world, the people in your relationships, significant others, children, your parents, your siblings. Use it to seek to understand with compassion and love. And then that way you become someone that responds to things and not reacts. Doesn't mean that you still won't at times get triggered right into things, but at the same, this is giving you a new way of looking at what can be going on, and that it can actually end up being a superpower. I like thinking about it that way. Oh, and how do you differentiate between PTSD triggers and clairsentience? Um, I don't know that we have to differentiate them. It can literally be both things happening. It shows up as anxiety. Clairsentience can. It shows up as PTSD. And so it's been given a label that we can put on it. But when you have a trigger that is as strong as PTSD, there can this is like a tool in that toolkit of being able to down regulate where the sympathetic nervous system has gone wild. It's run amok. You're no longer in control of your thinking and your thoughts. You're in fight or flight, or you shut down. Nothing gets to happen around you. You have to go home, take a nap, take a rest, a Xanax or something or whatever, right? And so that's what happens when PTS gets triggered and there's nowhere to go with it but down. I'm going down, which is okay. But if you people have therapists, and that's a good idea to have if you have PTSD, right? I think it's excellent, and they're going to give people tools and triggers. I do believe there's stuff out there with plant medicine that can be extremely helpful with people with PTSD or managing it or perhaps even breaking free from it. Some people will say certain plant medicines. I'm not an expert in that. I've never done plant medicine, so I can't speak from, but I have seen some of the research when I was doing my meditation study. And so there's tools like meditation, but if we understand clairsentience and we get the knowledge to know that we can take a step before things get out of control and we've gone down, whether the tools come from therapy or the tools come from plant medicine and the tools come from spiritual knowledge. Hey man, they're all a tool worth having to use. A hammer doesn't fix everything. Sometimes you need a saw or a screwdriver. And so think of it that way. I don't even know if that was a good analogy or not. So instead of differentiate what's happening, there's always going to be a level of clairsentience, always, that's going on in those moments. Clairsentience isn't the cause of PTSD, but somebody that's highly clairsentient may have an extreme with that because of their sensitivity, but the understanding that it's more of a tool than a negative thing is what I'm hoping is becoming clear. I'm not sure. Maybe that was as clear as mud, but I hope that was helpful. I think you're wanting me, you're like, thank you, that's enough. Okay, yeah, it's like it works hand in hand with each other and it depends on controlling our reactions to it, right? And enough practice with clairsentient things like we're doing today in an effort to understand before it gets to that DEFCON 4 or gets way out of control, if that makes sense. Okay, I want us to be able to practice this again. We'll still be able to take questions, but for now, I'm going to close this down for the sake of the video and being on YouTube. And just letting people, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also go to angelichope.com and see all the things that I have going on, and maybe even other free classes that I have available. But I'm going to end the recording there, and I want to thank you with my whole heart. Those of us that are here live, please stay exactly where you are and don't move.